Taiwan, an island, sits just 130 kilometers off mainland China. It's also a mere 110 kilometers from Yonaguni, Japan's westernmost inhabited isle. For centuries, Taiwan was largely influenced by China and Japan. Then, it found itself caught in the middle of Cold War tensions. The Portuguese explorers in the 1600s were amazed by Taiwan's stunning landscapes. They named it Formosa, meaning beautiful in their language.
依稀睡声湿翠苏。
Today, this small, independent nation faces increasing pressure from China. Beijing claims Taiwan as one of its own provinces. That's what President Tsai Ing-wen said. The global political scene is changing super fast. As authoritarianism spreads, all free and democratic nations must stay alert. Taiwan is currently on the front lines of democracy. These carefully chosen words come from Tsai Ing-wen, Asia's first female president. They highlight the threat China poses to Taiwan. The country isn't recognized internationally, neither as a region nor a nation. This means it's excluded from major global organizations like the UN and WHO. Though diplomatically isolated, Taiwan has found ways to thrive independently. Since President Tsai Ing-wen took office, the government has embraced digital democracy. This has been a huge success with the backing of young people and citizens online. Hi, I'm Audrey Tang, Taiwan's digital minister. I don't just work for the government, I work with it. And I don't work for the people, I work with them. The whole world saw this innovative approach to governance during the COVID-19 pandemic. Taiwanese citizens fully support the government's participatory health policies, and the pandemic is under control here. The Taiwanese archipelago holds a crucial geographical spot between the South China Sea and the Pacific Ocean. Yet it's like a tiny speck on the map, a grain of rice lost at sea. The strait separating Taiwan from mainland China is a vital trade route for essential goods and fuel from the Middle East. It's also a flashpoint for geopolitical tension, with China frequently conducting military exercises there. Why all the provocation? There are many reasons why China considers Taiwan absolutely crucial and non-negotiable. Taiwan is a democracy today. The Taiwanese people make their own choices through voting. The government in Taiwan changes hands regularly. You might have the Kuomintang, which has historically been more accommodating to Beijing, but still very cautious. Or you have the independence movement, also cautious, but unwilling to yield to Beijing's demands regarding Taiwan's status. This presents a significant challenge for the Chinese regime. Beijing's narrative is that universal values and democratic principles don't exist. They're just Western ideas. Taiwan clearly shows this is not true, proving that Chinese people and Chinese culture can thrive within a fully democratic system. What's remarkable is that Taiwan is currently one of Asia's most vibrant and dynamic democracies. Taiwan chose democracy, a direct contrast to Beijing's authoritarian policies. Digital technology plays a role in both public and political life in China and Taiwan. However, their utilization of it is fundamentally different. The pandemic really brought this contrast into sharp focus. While China enforced control and spread misinformation, Taiwan embraced democracy, becoming even more digital, inclusive, and transparent. The health minister really leans into this transparency. He hosts a live press conference every day at 2 p.m. People call him the 2 o'clock man. Both journalists and the public tune in right on time. First, based on over a year of experience, We know that controlling an epidemic requires significant strength. But we also need to be mindful of our prevention strategies. I want to stress that we need a balance between strong prevention and effective methods. During the peak of the pandemic, some of these sessions stretched for over 4 hours. The transparency and patience shown by the minister and his team demonstrate their trust in the people, which is returned. Of course, we have press conferences daily, and journalists ask all sorts of different questions. And naturally, we have to provide a satisfactory answer to every single question. That's truly a tough job. But I see these press conferences as having two main parts. One is the government's official announcements regarding new policies. And for anyone with questions, we can provide the answers they need. Taiwan's government openly shares data and encourages civil society to help develop solutions. There are 5 options available designed to meet. Unlike the secrecy of the Chinese government, Taiwan actively listens to its citizens and collaborates with tech experts, ethical hackers, known here as civic hackers, like Audrey Tang. Innovative public engagement doesn't happen easily because the dynamic of back-and-forth exchanges gets lost. So, in Taiwan, we see that as people use communication tools or even just their mobile phones, citizens and their communities, their own tech experts, create these solutions themselves. If we had just imposed a lockdown from the start, preventing any pandemic-related information from being shared, all these brilliant innovations would have been impossible. So, in Taiwan, we observe that as people utilize communication tools or originally their mobile phone systems, citizens and communities, along with their own tech-savvy individuals, develop these innovations independently. And had we, at the outset, simply enforced a lockdown and forbidden the public from sharing any pandemic-related information, all of these innovations would have been stifled. Taiwanese citizens understand that their democratic values serve as a strong defense against the Beijing government. They readily support any initiative that benefits the collective good. Using QR codes is like allowing everyone to easily log their daily movements, like visiting different places and scanning their phone. And using their own phones. Then yesterday, I calculated. But in other countries, we've also seen that if people don't trust where the QR code data is stored, they won't accurately check in. So, of course, on one hand, you could be very strict, saying if you don't do this, we'll revoke your license or something like that. Our innovations in democracy, especially because our innovation process is also public, not just the results. If something isn't done well, even a judge might step in or a whistleblower, and since our entire process is transparent, it offers even greater value for everyone's reference. Look, we have a little switch here. I can show them well, not for the victim. To grasp how this young democracy has asserted itself, we must revisit the rich history of this tiny island nation. Oh my goodness, hold me tight. I'm so weak. It's an island with an indigenous heritage, home to several Austronesian ethnic groups who migrated from the Asian continent to settle a significant part, and maritime regions of the world. They lived on their island, with very little contact with mainland Asia or the Japanese archipelago until the 17th century. In the 17th century, Taiwan's destiny was completely wide open. The Japanese were present, as were the Chinese, and in both cases unofficially. It was mostly isolated individuals. Throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, the island lacked a unified government, organized instead around its various tribes. Its coast served as a key trading post for burgeoning maritime commerce. During this same era, China and Japan intentionally isolated themselves, aiming to fend off colonization attempts by Western powers. However, the Opium Wars brought an end to this period of isolation. The barrier was broken in 1840 at the port of Hong Kong. China was defeated by the British military, and Western nations established their enclaves along the mainland coast. In 1895, the Chinese Empire, which then included Taiwan, went to war with Imperial Japan over influence in the Korean peninsula. Japan emerged victorious, and China ceded Taiwan to them. The Japanese Empire would go on to govern and colonize the island for the next 50 years. On mainland China, a significant political figure emerged at the turn of the 20th century, embodying a vision for a new, modern, and democratic China: Sun Yat-sen. In 1911, this revolutionary leader overthrew the centuries-old imperial system, represented by Puyi, the last Manchu emperor. The Qing dynasty, which had ruled mainland China for 300 years, was toppled. Sun Yat-sen, the first president of the Republic of China, served for only 3 months. However, his democratic ideals continue to inspire to this day. Sun Yat-sen is revered in Taiwan as the founding father of the Republic of China and in mainland China as the pioneer of the revolution. He serves as a crucial link connecting the cultural and political identities on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. In Taipei, the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Hall is a major draw for tourists from mainland China, who come to witness the ceremonial changing of the guard. By the 1930s, the colonized island had distinctly taken on Japanese characteristics, becoming a vital launching point for the Empire of the Rising Sun's expansionist ambitions across Southeast Asia. Japan established profitable networks for communication, agriculture, and industry. In 1945, Japan surrendered and was required to return Taiwan to China, then led by the Kuomintang with Chiang Kai-shek at its helm. But the Chinese Communist Party, under Mao Zedong and with Soviet backing, began resisting Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist forces, who were themselves supported by the United States. A civil war erupted between two factions in China. Chiang Kai-shek lost the fight and had to depart the mainland. In 1949, he sought refuge in Taiwan. 1 million mainland Chinese who remained loyal to the Kuomintang followed him. So, the Taiwanese were quite happy to get rid of, as they put it, the Japanese dogs. And so, they welcomed the Republic with open arms, as best they could, often with enthusiasm. However, this enthusiasm quickly cooled, and they were traumatized by the brutal crackdown on February 27 and 28, 1947, which led to a massacre. Thus, the Taiwanese were left traumatized. After seeing off the Japanese dogs, they thought, well, now we have the Chinese pigs. On February 28, 1947, an event sparked a massive gathering in front of Taipei City Hall. The rough arrest of a woman selling cigarettes ignited a rebellion against the harshness of the newly arrived Chinese. Kuomintang police opened fire on the crowd to break it up. The island suffered a bloody suppression. Arrests, torture, immediate executions, and imprisonment. Martial law was imposed in 1947 and remained in effect until 1987. Mr. Yang personally experienced these events. These 40 years of dictatorship, known as the White Terror, mark a sorrowful period and remain a sensitive chapter in Taiwan's history. My own family was affected. It wasn't until 1989 that I realized my family had been victims. My father was a writer and a doctor. My uncle was also a doctor. My father was killed 3 times. The police killed him 3 times. Pharmacists couldn't kill him, but the military police did. Now, my own grandfather disappeared for over 2 months. He was placed under house arrest. And my uncle, he didn't make it. He was younger, an elementary school teacher. Someone more, let's say, defiant, would be directly thrown into the river and drowned that same day. He was bound with 2 other people to a large rock with wire, then thrown into the river. And that's how he drowned. There was also a planned massacre targeting Taiwan's intellectual elite. My family, with 3 victims, perfectly fits this pattern. When the nationalist government arrived in Taiwan, they immediately saw who was good and who was bad. Japan actually brought positive development to Taiwan. Taiwan is Taiwan and China is China. But we know clearly that the Taiwanese personality isn't as easily defined as that. We are currently adjusting our own perspectives. We also accept the Republic of China in Taiwan as it is. After the war concluded, Chiang Kai-shek was recognized as the official representative for both Chinas at the United Nations. Consequently, the Republic of China, based in Taiwan, held a secure international standing as a permanent member of the Security Council. On the island, the unique Kuomintang party enforced colonial policies with an iron grip. This included favoring mainland Chinese culture, suppressing freedoms, censoring the press, and altering historical narratives. In 1949, after his defeat by Mao, Chiang Kai-shek tended to reinforce what he believed was Taiwan's distinct and inherent identity. He insisted, ignoring historical and societal facts, that Taiwan was undeniably a Chinese island. Yet, Taiwan's identity is clearly more multifaceted. Following Japanese rule and the authoritarianism of Chinese nationalists, Taiwan faced another crisis in 1971. A pivotal event dramatically shifted the political and diplomatic landscape. President Nixon and Secretary of State Kissinger secretly orchestrated a rapprochement between the United States and Mao's China. The condition set by the communist leadership for this alliance was the acceptance of the One China policy. This One China policy has been an obsession for the mainland and continues to be so today. As a result, Taiwan was removed from the United Nations Security Council, and China triumphantly assumed its seat. When the United States dropped its objection to the People's Republic of China representing China at the UN instead of Taiwan, the question arose whether Taiwan should retain its seat. Similar to other divided nations like Vietnam and Germany, Chiang Kai-shek at the time was convinced, or at least highly displeased, by this American concession. Consequently, he refused. This is why only the People's Republic of China became China's representative at the UN. At that time, Mao likely didn't have the means to object to a dual-state solution with dual recognition. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, leaving Taiwan currently a unique diplomatic entity, lacking official recognition but simultaneously very vibrant. It doesn't matter if a cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice. This encapsulates Deng Xiaoping's stance, who succeeded Mao in the late 1970s. He steered the Chinese Communist Party towards economic liberalization. During this period, Taiwan experienced rapid industrialization. Alongside South Korea, Hong Kong, and Singapore, the island emerged as one of the four Asian tigers, demonstrating explosive economic growth. By the 1990s, on opposite sides of the ideological spectrum, Chinese society embarked on drastically different political paths, despite shared economic interests. China's growth, its economic reforms, the Chinese economic miracle, you have to face reality. A significant portion of this success is due to investments from overseas Chinese, particularly from Taiwan. It was Taiwanese companies that invested in China, relocated there, and contributed immensely, and continue to do so, to China's economic expansion. Without Taiwan, the Chinese economic miracle as we know it today would not have occurred. However, the strong economic ties between Taiwan and Communist China did not diminish the weakening political standing of the Kuomintang. Everything hinged on the presidency of Ma Ying-jeou, who led Taiwan from 2008 to 2016. During his second term, he approved cooperation agreements that tightened China's economic grip on Taiwan. The Democratic Progressive Party voiced its opposition and demanded transparency in the negotiations. The general public, led by students, watched the situation with skepticism. Since 2008, Taiwan has been governed by Ma Ying-jeou, a member of the Chinese Nationalist Party. He fails to grasp that his gamble is destined to fail. Their elders, the preceding generation, understood this all too well and clearly stated that one does not negotiate with communists, especially Chinese communists, because you always lose. So, Ma Ying-jeou is lost in delusion. The only geopolitical rationale he believes is that China is rising, and rather than being consumed by an invasion, it's better to align with it. Thus, before it's too late, to negotiate the best possible position. However, from a geopolitical standpoint, I find this utterly absurd and remarkably naive, as communists never negotiate in good faith. They only negotiate to buy time. By March 2014, tensions had been escalating for a year between conservative and progressive lawmakers over these non-transparent agreements, which were detrimental to Taiwan. On March 17th, the day before the agreements were to be signed, civil society, without consultation or debate, was prepared to make their voices heard. Wang Jinpyng was a Kuomintang legislator and Speaker of the Legislative Yuan at the time. It seems that amidst a highly chaotic and unusual situation, the Communist Party's ad hoc committee decided to declare the case a so-called sad case. This essentially meant the bill had already passed the legislature. Naturally, this led to widespread public dissatisfaction. Opposition lawmakers joined the public in a massive demonstration on the evening of March 18th. Students were at the forefront of the procession. The events that followed would mark the Sunflower Movement as a historic moment in Taiwanese political history. Among the movement's leaders, several prominent figures emerged, including Lin Feifan, a young political science student. Entering the legislature to protest is an entirely different situation. Inside the legislature, we were completely defenseless with no resources. We actually had no idea of the layout. Where were the lights? Where were the switches? Where were the air conditioning units? It was a very organic process, meaning it was highly dynamic. Each person relied on their own skills. For instance, everyone had a phone back then. Phones were used for broadcasting, live streaming, and uploading videos online. And because of the internet, many people saw the information online, which prompted them to join. The students' occupation of Parliament demonstrated the widespread opposition to the trade agreements across the entire nation. The longer the occupation continued, the more the political discussion opened up to everyone. Civic. The movement's momentum particularly surged online. A new platform, spearheaded by Audrey Tang and several civic hackers, became central to the discussions. Cho Chi-ching was a pioneering figure among MIT computer scientists. During the Sunflower Movement, alongside other software engineers, he began publishing the trade agreements online. A project began about 6 months before the Sunflower Movement. We initially joined it and managed to create new digital tools to help everyone understand these trade agreements, like the lighthouse and the fire in Sunflower. At that time, there was a government advertisement for something called the Economic Stimulus Plan. Basically, it's an economic boost program. And this ad essentially told us, in a very blunt way, that you people are all idiots and don't need to understand what the government is doing. Just leave it to us, we'll handle it. That made us very angry. And not only was I angry, but all my friends in the software industry were also angry. So what else could we do besides being angry? We thought, as software engineers, we could actually try to do something to see if we could bring about some change. The initial action was to explain the concrete impact of these agreements on businesses. Something the government had never studied. So, if you have a background in technology and want to participate in this activity, the closest connection you'd have is between the judiciary and social issues. Cho Chi-ling launched the Gov0 platform in 2012. Audrey Tang discovered it and contributed regularly. During the Sunflower Movement, the number of contributions and connections to the interface continued to grow. Thanks to digital technology, we can transform it so that not only can we hear many people discussing at once, but also many people can find common ground and propose innovations that everyone can accept. It creates value and proposes innovations that everyone can agree on. I believe this is the fundamental difference between digital democracy and, perhaps, representative democracy. In 2014, Cho was a student. The excitement in the streets and on social media awakened her political awareness. Why do you say that? Why is what you say necessarily correct? I don't think so. If it's not correct, then why can't we discuss it? And in this process, we always have many speeches, or you could say it more openly, we can sit down and discuss at any time. This is more of a discussion for young people. Sunflower Movement activists occupied Parliament for 3 weeks in a peaceful and responsible atmosphere. They were backed by a massive crowd that overflowed into the streets surrounding Parliament, and acted as a protective barrier, a negotiating force. This is what I find very compelling. It involves showing children what's happening in Taiwan today. Why are these older brothers and sisters here, not going home, not sleeping, staying here? What does this represent? What is democracy?